Good evening, and thank you all for joining us for our FY21 Proposed Budget Community Town Hall. My name is Tomas Talmonte, Deputy Chief of Staff to Mayor Muriel Bowser. We want to thank you for joining us this evening as we hear from you on your questions related to Mayor Bowser's FY21 proposed budget. I want to remind everyone before I pass it over to Mayor Bowser to get us started that we have all of the budget and all the materials related to the budget available for you to view at budget.dc.gov. Again, that is budget.dc.gov. That includes Mayor Bowser's presentation from earlier this week to the Council, ward by ward budget highlights, so you can see exactly what is being invested for your community and other items for your review. So we will now hear from Mayor Bowser.
Thank you, Tomas. And I'm going to speak briefly, and the City Administrator and the Budget Director will talk to you on the high level and big buckets of expenditures, and we want to leave most of the time to answer your questions. Yesterday I presented the Council my Fiscal 21 budget. The proposed budget is over $16 billion, including $8.5 billion in local funds. The themes in our budget focus on health, opportunity, prosperity, and equity, and it reflects the sense of hope that we have, even in these unprecedented times, for us to live up to our values and provide every Washingtonian with a fair shot to really thrive in our city. Our challenges are still great, but we were fortunate coming into this pandemic. The city was in then very strong had a very strong financial standing. And we got here because of our fiscal responsibility and our sense of purpose in investing taxpayer dollars to support a growing city, but also invest in Washingtonians. This budget reflects the impact of the global coronavirus pandemic, but it also reflects our ongoing commitment to our values. As Tomas mentioned, I encourage you to visit budget.dc.gov, which includes a breakdown of investments by ward. So with that, I'm going to turn it to the City Administrator for remarks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you all of you for joining us. As the Mayor indicated, really it's because of the strong posture and the previous success of the district that we're really able to get through this budget with what we think are some very strong investments and key priorities for our city. When we think about how we approached resolving and challenging our budget, it really was in a few areas that we focused on. One, we made use of the reserves that we have in the district to really help us deal with significant revenue losses that we've experienced. Two, we leveraged the federal resources that we have as a result of the pandemic, and really are anticipating making further investments in our recovery and reopen through additional investments from the federal government as well. And three, we looked for every efficiency that we could within agency budgets and across the government to address the issue. Just to give you some highlights and context about this budget in particular, the gross fund budgets for the district in 2021 will be $16.7 billion. The largest area of change from last year was the growth in two what we call enterprise funds or special funds, and that's related to the increased resources in the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund and also $304 million for paid family leave. The local funds budget, which is what the budget we tend to talk about the most, is $8.5 billion, very similar to the amount that it is in this current fiscal year of 2020. And our strongest, or largest, I should say, investment there is still in public education. Just to put into context a little bit of in the capital budget, which is our 6-year plan for infrastructure improvements and to maintain our physical assets, is $7.9 billion for this next 6-year plan from 2021 to 2026. Just to put into context some of the challenge that we had to cut $722 million in this fiscal year of 2020 and $774 million in 2021. Hypothetically, if we cut all of the Department of Human Services and Disability Services and Parks, we would come close to the amount that we had to reduce. And so that's really a significant amount of resources. For the capital budget, our focus there, as we had to cut $1.2 billion from that budget, was to maintain the timelines for existing projects, keep our core infrastructures in a state of good repair, and then prioritize around maintenance and safety improvements. The budget really, I think, is focused on 3 key priority areas. Education, where we've invested 3% in increasing the uniform per student funding formula. We've got a new Bard School, which will be in Ward 8 at the home of the Malcolm X Opportunity School. We have a permanent home in this budget for the Excel Academy, which is the all-girls school. And then we've got a new home for the DC Infrastructure Academy and a really creative capital investment at this old Spingarn High School. We also have the new Foxhall Elementary School in Ward 3, which will really help us with some of the overcrowding that we've seen at the elementary schools and within the Wilson feeder pattern. In the healthcare space, we maintained and actually added to our investment for the new hospital at on the campus of St. Elizabeth in Ward 8. We have funded a little bit more than $4 million to support investments for the Mayor's Health System Commission, which is really focused on emergency room overcrowding and helping to address disparities in healthcare. And we're so happy to support Howard Hospital as they pursue developing a new hospital on the campus of Howard University. In the housing space, the Mayor has maintained key commitments to affordable housing with $100 million in the Housing Production Trust Fund, $18 million for the Housing Purchase Assistance Program and the Employee Housing Assistance Program, $1 million, which will leverage $4 million in the Preservation Fund, and we've got a new tax abatement in the later years of what we call our 4-year financial plan for high opportunity areas to produce additional affordable housing there. So this budget spends $16.7 million really trying to address the priorities of this community in the face of what has been a very challenging and significant decline in our revenues due to the pandemic and the COVID-19. So we continue to look for opportunities to leverage our federal assistance and continue to invest in those priorities that matter most to D.C. residents. So with that, unless Director Reed has anything to add, we'll turn it back over to Tomas, who can guide us with the questions.
I have nothing to add right now, City Administrator and Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director. So, again, if you have any questions, we will move to the Q&A portion of the agenda. You can press 0 now to be entered into our question queue, and we will start to work through some of our questions. So, again, I want to remind you, if you have any questions, you can press 0 now and can begin to get entered into the question queue to get your questions answered. So we'll start this evening with Mr. William Shelton. William, your line is unmuted.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to call and both commend you and, for putting together a budget that really does take into consideration all of the issues during the COVID-19 pandemic. One of my questions is that I looked at the budget and specifically around the issues of jobs and economic development and wanted to know what could we do to kind of increase in some ways our efforts to address some of the local workforce disparities. I'm sure we all are aware that the district, being very unique, really has significant gaps in terms of the numbers of district residents that are working in the city. And I really wanted to figure out a way that we could pinpoint directly some direct resources and direct outcomes to kind of address these disparities, understanding that these are difficult times. But I wanted to figure out some.
Thank you. I appreciate that question. And we also recognize that even coming out of this pandemic, we may have some additional opportunities for reskilling and retraining district residents. We especially don't know how quickly the economy is going to recover, so we can expect to even see unemployment for a longer period of time, and it may have grown, especially in the communities that have been hard hit. So we're watching that very closely. We think that we have, we're going to put a marker in place at Spingarn High School to totally revamp the way we think about workforce training at our infrastructure academy. And that academy, as you know, includes all of the local utilities, and it also has a focus on IT. And we see in this world of telecommuting and teleworking that the demands, we think, in the IT fields are going to continue to grow. So building on already our workforce plan and our economic development strategy for where the growing jobs are, we have to recheck all of those things to make sure post-COVID-19 that we're heading in the right direction. So we will continue to use our infrastructure academy, but a new one at Spingarn to be ready for retraining our workforce.
You, Mayor. We'll go next to Cristina Caballero in Ward 2. Cristina, your line is unmuted.
Yes. Okay. I'm calling you from my telephone, and so just wanted to see what we can expect on Ward 2 for the businesses there, and also for the issue of health care and investments in that particular area.
Was there a corridor you were most concerned about with regard to businesses, Christina?
And not really, just a general question, I think, is what I have.
Okay, and so part of what we've been focused on during this pandemic is our small businesses. I think you know that we invested over $25 million in micro grants from the city. DC businesses also took advantage of the federal PPP loans that are going to help them with some of their operating costs. And we're also focused on how we're going to help our restaurants restart, which is very critical to the Ward 2 business community. So we'll continue to focus on that. This budget makes huge investments in health care. You heard the city administrator already mentioned the 2 new hospitals. We've also been able to invest in telemedicine, and we'll continue to do that to connect people to health care so that we can improve the health outcomes in our city. Additionally, in Ward 2, we invested in Jelliff Recreation Center as well as Great Streets in the Neighborhood Prosperity Fund that will help our business corridors.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll go to our next question. Again, I want to remind everyone to please press 0 now if you to get into our question queue if you have a question. We're next going to go to Yvette Seors, and I may be mispronouncing that last name, but Yvette, your line is unmuted.
Hi, thank you so much, and glad to talk to you, Mayor. I'm representing the DC nonprofit Bite Back. And as we can all see, the digital divide is starker than ever right now, and I really believe that you care about opportunity, fair shots, and equity for the district, like you said. But instead of investing in digital equity, this budget is making cuts to it. So in your opinion, should digital equity be a priority for DC? And if so, what agency is most responsible for investing in closing a digital skills gap for adults?
We're not cutting digital equity.
According to the Octo budget, it seems that especially Connect DC is being cut, so that's the main digital inclusion initiative that's being proposed to have major cuts to it. So I'm wondering where that should land. Where do we expect adults to get those digital skills that they need, especially right now?
I'm going to ask the city administrator to talk about Connect DC and also the investments we're making with digital devices and Wi-Fi connections.
Thank you, Mayor. And so, yeah, there is reductions to the Connect DC program, but we're really hoping to be able to leverage some philanthropic support and federal grants to continue that work. But even beyond that, we did retain the Mobile Tech Lab, which is a bus with computers that will be riding around the city. Certainly from DCPS's perspective, we've launched the Connected Learners initiative this year, and we've given out nearly 10,000 devices during this pandemic to families to really help them with the distance learning that's occurring while school was in session at homes. DCPS also has resources in the capital budget to continue upgrades to schools to make sure that the Connected Learning Initiative can leverage the best in terms of connectivity and Wi-Fi across all of our school facilities. Next year, in fiscal year 2021, we will be investing at least $6 million for the continuation of our Connected Learning program, where the goal here is to connect all of our young people and students with digital devices to help aid in their learning. So there's still a significant investment in digital equity and inclusion in this budget.
Thank you, City Administrator. We're next going to go to Ellen Bass in Ward 3. Ellen, your line is unmuted.
Yes, hello. I'm from Ward 3. Madam Mayor, I'm wondering about the $750 million that the district should have gotten in the federal relief bill. What are the chances of us getting that money going forward? And if we do get it, how will that affect the budget?
Thank you, Ellen. And we are, of course, working what I call all sides of the Congress, the Senate, and the White House on making sure that the district is made whole from CARES 1. Our Congresswoman has worked very hard with Speaker Pelosi, and whom I've talked to directly about this issue. The Speaker has a bill called HEROES, where the district was made whole, with $755 million and state-level funding on any issue moving forward. I'm sure you have followed that the Senate Majority Leader is balking at moving another bill forward, and there's a lot of negotiation going on at the time. I spoke to the President directly about it yesterday, and we continue to work with members of his administration as well. So I am hopeful that another bill will move through the Congress and the President will sign it. And at this stage, we're in the House version, and we have to keep fighting to make sure that we will be in what the Senate votes on as well. We do need the money. We are planning, and the way I would say it is those additional dollars will allow us to have a safe, orderly, and sustained recovery. There are a couple of boxes of spending that we have planned that will help our businesses and community organizations get back. Starting with PPE and sanitizer and physical build-outs, staff that would support screening for symptoms at various organizations or businesses. We could create a local stockpile to help our businesses with their PPE and physical improvements. Public spaces we could modify to help with more social distancing. We will continue to test and trace until we have a vaccine available, and then we could also assist with the vaccine marketing and distribution when people are going to their doctors. and we could be prepared if there's a second wave of COVID when we enter the flu season. We can continue to support children and seniors and adults who need healthy food delivered. We can increase our investment in digital access for learning, faith communities, and healthcare. We can also provide housing counseling, rental relief, or housing supports in the housing area. And finally, we can consider extended unemployment for people who are in sectors of the economy that will open at the end of our phased reopening.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll go to our next question from Angeline in Ward 4. Angeline, your line is unmuted.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor. First, I want to thank you for the great job that you're doing and your staff. And my question is, I am from Ward 4, Brightwood, and I'm calling to see whether in the budget do you have any money set aside for senior living and affordable housing in the Brightwood area?
Absolutely, ma'am. We continue to make very big investments in affordable housing. You may recall that when I became mayor, I doubled our investment in the Housing Production Trust Fund, and this year we continue to invest $100 million in affordable housing. I would have to refer to our Ward 4 list that's also on our website to talk about some specific projects in Ward 4. We have been heavily involved with HPTF in Brightwood, especially between Georgia Avenue and 14th Street, in preserving a number of affordable units in that neighborhood. And also at Walter Reed, we are very focused in investing in senior units there. And $5 million for our Safe at Home program, which allows seniors who want to age in place in their homes to make safety improvements. We're also looking at the block of Georgia Avenue just north of Missouri Avenue, where we own the old firehouse, Engine 22, which we think can also be a site for additional housing.
Thank you, Mayor. We are going to go to our next question. And again, I want to remind everyone we have a few people in the queue, but if you're not in the queue yet, you can press 0 now, and we're going to go to our next question. Give us just a second. We're going to go next to Anna Barber from Ward 4. Anna, your line is unmuted.
Hi, Mayor Bowser. Thank you so much for working with the council to allocate the $25 million to small businesses here in D.C. I own a small business here and didn't think I was going to be impacted, which I have been now, and missed the deadline for the initial round of funding. So my question is in regards to future funding for small businesses in D.C., whether it be through grants or loans. Is there anything planned?
We continue to contemplate it as part of the reopening effort. And if you don't mind, what type of business do you have?
I have a fundraising consulting business.
Okay, so we are in the professional services. I asked you that because I want to make sure that as we contemplate additional business relief, that we're keeping businesses impacted by every phase. Early on, when that program was launched, we had closed restaurants, and we were beginning to go into the other non-essential businesses. So a lot of them are included in the group that I mentioned. And so if we are able to fund another round, I think it will focus on businesses that are going to open in the later phases as we design that process. So we have contemplated, as I explained to the council, $158 million that will help us invest in the reopening stage by stage of our economy. So we haven't designed a new program, and we're not sure yet how much can be invested in it, but we will keep you up to date on that.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll go to our next question from Sharika in Ward 4. Sharika, your line is unmuted.
Hi, Madam Mayor. Thank you for taking my call. My question is pertaining to the youth in our city right now. Being that school will be closing as of May 29th and some charter schools towards the beginning of June, is there any plan to continue moving forward with SYEP this summer?
About SYEP in some detail on Friday, and our expectation is that we will have a SYEP experience for our young people, and I actually just got a final brief from the team on what some of it could look like, and we're putting the final touches on it, and we'll report out on Friday exactly what all of the options for SYEP will be.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll next go to Chris Kearns. Chris Kearns, your line is unmuted.
Yes, I was wondering, is the district cutting back, postponing, or eliminating any specific public works or transportation projects that were previously on track? And if so, is there a published list of those projects?
For transportation projects? Was that your question, Chris?
Yes, specific public works or transportation projects that were previously on track.
I think that you'll find, and we can go through the plan, and we have some that may have been delayed a year, but we don't think that anything that was imminent was pushed back or eliminated.
That's right, Mayor. Our priority really was for those projects that were ready to move forward to keep them in their current places in the CIP and in the capital improvement plan. So if a project moved, then in all likelihood, if it's a transportation-related project or a public works project, it's because that project wasn't ready to move forward or hadn't been fully funded in the capital improvement plan. One of the priorities that the mayor had for the capital plan was to ensure, for example, that our fleet remains funded according to our capital asset replacement system. And this is a system that tells us how often and in what quantities we should replace our rolling stock, like trash trucks and street sweepers, police vehicles and fire vehicles and the like. And so we worked very hard to make sure that we maintain those. The 11th Street Bridge Park, for example, also moved in the capital improvement plan, but that's because there's a private investment that's required to move that project forward, and that private investment hasn't materialized yet. The 8th Street Bridge project also moved to later years in the capital improvement plan, but that too is because all of the funding necessary to move that project forward and some of federal fundings that we're anticipating haven't come yet, and we're trying to time the 8th Street Bridge project, for example, with also the greater development that's going to go over at Union Terminal. So those are the kinds of projects that if they moved, that's the reason why.
Thank you, City Administrator. We have time for just a few more questions, so we're going to go next to Mr. Gary Hamilton. Gary, your line is unmuted.
Hey, good afternoon, Madam Mayor. First, I must say congratulations to your team for the news of approving the agreement to build 2 new hospitals in the district, and that will certainly tackle the healthcare inequity that we have. Now, I want to have talked about the St. Elizabeth Hospital. We know that I'm seeing a schedule date for 2024, which is very aggressive in terms of schedule. I have 2 questions in that regards. One, have the district cleared all the impediments? And it's I'm pretty sure that with UHS, and are we in good stand that this will go ahead and have the process start this year? And the second question is, what role would the DC government play in the delivery of this project?
Well, thanks for that question. We've been working on it for a number of years. That's why we feel very confident with the timeline, including readying the site. We're gonna actually, I think we started the construction of the new building that we had to. All of the infrastructure work has been underway for a number of years. We just finished our agreement with UHS, and we feel very confident about that agreement. It does have to go to the council for approval. So we all need to continue to focus on that process and make sure that the council approves it, because we have worked into our timeline approval of the agreement soon.
And in fact, Mayor, we anticipate bringing legislation to the council this summer before they go on break for their consideration of all of the aspects of the deal. And as the mayor indicated, we've been hard at work on all of the things necessary to make this work, including the environmental reviews, working with other agencies that have impacts on that site. We are building a new homeless shelter, 801 East, and that is well underway. That's in the critical path of the hospital. And you asked about the role of D.C. government. So the mayor said that the district isn't best positioned to run a hospital, and so we need to be out of the hospital operating business. So with this deal with George Washington Hospital to run the hospital at St. Elizabeth's, or on the campus of St. Elizabeth's, the district would own the facility and lease it to George Washington Hospital, and they would own the operation. And so the GW Hospital would own the operations of the new hospital and be responsible for all of those operational decisions and managing that enterprise.
Thank you, City Administrator. We'll go next to Marcia Truman. Marcia, your line is unmuted.
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor. Thank you so much for taking my call. My question is the financial disparity in the city with persons that are making where 60% of their income is going towards housing, which also means that they're not eligible for any sort of assistance like food stamps and so on. Are there any programs whereas the D.C. government is matching them so that such a large amount of their income is not going to just paying or trying to sustain housing in the city?
Continue to invest in affordable housing programs, affordable home ownership programs. And for employees of D.C. government and other employees. And that has been one way that we are addressing and trying to address the affordable housing issue for people who have middle incomes. We are still able also to work towards our housing goal of building new units, which we think will have a positive impact on housing affordability in the city. But I don't know, Director Reed, did you want to add more about all of our affordable housing investments?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I just wanted to add that we also are working right now with our Department of Housing and Community Development on standing up a new rental assistance program that's really aimed at people who don't qualify for our emergency rental assistance program. So it is for those residents making a little bit more income but still having difficulty making the mortgage or the rent payments. And we will be announcing those details as part of our reopening strategy. We'll also be looking at using some of our coronavirus state fund to help families who may have fallen on hard times and are needing some emergency shelter or some emergency housing assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. So that concludes today's Community Leader Town Hall. We want to thank you all for joining us. And now that the budget has been proposed, the council will move through consideration. And so, as we all are continuing to stay at home, there's a lot of great ways for you to engage on the proposed budget. So all of the hearings that will be occurring over the next few weeks with the D.C. Council and district agencies can be viewed online at dccouncil.us. As well as you can be engaged with your advisory neighborhood commissions. We have launched a new tool at coronavirus.dc.gov/ANC, where you can go and view where your ANC meeting is virtually and participate and join. And we will have directors and deputy mayors out speaking on the mayor's budget and investments as well at our ANC meetings virtually. So we hope that you will participate in your ANC meetings, let your ANC commissioners know about your priorities, just like you have with the mayor today, and engage with us on the budget. And before I pass it back to Mayor Bowser, I'd be remiss to remind residents about one more activity you can do from the safety of your own home and while you're staying home, which is complete the census. So you can complete the census online at 2020census.gov or call by phone as well by dialing 1-844-2020. Again, that number is 1-844-2020. We hope you will help us in doing all of our part to get counted in this year's census. So we'll pass it back to Mayor Bowser.
Thank you, Tomas, and thank you, everybody, for participating, and thank you also, Tomas, for putting up the ANC links. So not only can you participate in your ANC meeting, you can look at everybody's ANC meeting if you so choose, which could be fun, and we will be out talking about the great things happening in the city and how this budget will continue to invest in them. So thank you, and have a great one.
Thank you.